At 40 years old, Heavy D Sparks finally stopped pretending everything was fine. For years, fans had watched the trucks grow bigger, the stunts grow wilder, and the laughs grow louder, never realizing what it was costing the man behind it all. But now, after lawsuits, financial pressure, health rumors, and a complete dismantling of the empire he spent a decade building, Heavy D is admitting the truth he once tried so hard to hide. His rise was spectacular, but the fall that followed was even more shocking. And the reason he's speaking up now is far more painful than anyone expected. The rise before the storm. Long before Heavy D Sparks became the face of Discovery Channel's Diesel Brothers, he was just Dave Sparks, a kid from Layton, Utah, who couldn't stop taking things apart. Born on January 5, 1985, he grew up covered in grease, spending afternoons dismantling lawnmowers, dirt bikes, and anything with an engine he could get his hands on. By high school, he was already working part-time in a repair shop and loading up his schedule with every welding and fabrication class the school offered. After graduation, he took a brief shot at college, Weber State, then Utah Valley University, but sitting in a classroom never matched the thrill of turning raw steel into something alive. He quit, traded textbooks for tools, and went all in on the only thing he ever wanted to do: build machines bigger, stronger, and louder than anything on the road. His break came when he met David Diesel Dave Kiley around 2008 at a church event in Salt Lake City. The two bonded instantly over engines, trucks, and dreams far bigger than their budgets. The infamous moment that sealed their partnership came later that day. Heavy D accidentally filled Diesel Dave's truck with the wrong fuel, and the two ended up siphoning gasoline out of the tank together, laughing like idiots in the middle of a parking lot. What began as a mistake became a lifelong business friendship. Together they launched Diesel Sellers, a tiny operation in Bountiful, Utah, where the strategy was simple: buy beat-up diesel trucks nobody wanted, rebuild them into monsters, flip them for profit, and use every penny to fund the next crazier build. Then came social media. Heavy D understood the internet before the automotive world did. He filmed everything: repairs, failures, stunts, giveaways, and posted it online. Their truck giveaways, which required fans to buy $5 merchandise to enter, became a marketing powerhouse. Within a few years, millions of people were watching two Utah mechanics build trucks that looked like they belonged in another universe. Jay Leno noticed first, then Discovery Channel, and in January 2016, Diesel Brothers premiered. Overnight, Heavy D went from local mechanic to international star. But while the engines roared louder every season, the pressure behind the scenes was building even faster, and by the end of 2016, the first signs of disaster had already arrived: the lawsuit that nearly destroyed him. By the time Diesel Brothers reached its peak in 2016, Heavy D Sparks seemed unstoppable. The show was a ratings machine, merchandise sales were exploding, and their outlandish builds, monster trucks, smoke-belching diesels, amphibious creations, became viral sensations. But fame has a way of attracting the wrong kind of attention, and Heavy D learned that lesson sooner than anyone expected. Just months after the premiere, the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, a 4,000-member advocacy group of doctors and citizens, took aim at diesel sellers. They alleged that dozens of the trucks Sparks and his team built were violating the Clean Air Act, specifically by removing or disabling emission systems and enabling trucks to roll coal, blasting thick black smoke on public roads. What began as a complaint quickly snowballed into a federal case. By January 10, 2017, the lawsuit was official. Heavy D, Diesel Dave, and Sparks Motors LLC were being sued for emissions tampering. The plaintiffs claimed the modified trucks released up to 36 times more pollutants and 21 times more particulate matter than legal limits. The case gained national media attention, mainly because it wasn't just a mechanic under fire, but a full-fledged television star whose builds were airing weekly on Discovery Channel. Heavy D went online insisting the trucks were for off-road and competition use, but social media posts, build videos, and footage of the trucks being driven on highways were used against him. The trial dragged on for years. EPA agents reportedly raided businesses nationwide in diesel-related crackdowns, and Heavy D later described the experience as an absolute nightmare. In March 2020, U.S. District Judge Robert Shelby ruled against the Diesel brothers, ordering more than $848,000 in combined fines and legal fees. A permanent injunction prohibited them from ever removing emissions controls again. The appeals court upheld the ruling in 2021. The message from the government was unmistakable. The outlawed diesel era was over. For Heavy D, the financial hit hurt, but the personal blow was worse. His entire identity had been built on rebellious engineering, massive horsepower, and braking limits. Now he was being legally labeled a polluter, an environmental villain, the exact opposite of the hero his fans believed he was. He didn't say it publicly then, but the lawsuit broke something inside him. And as the legal battles continued, the pressure didn't stop, because at the same time, a different kind of rumor was beginning to grow. One centered not around courts or engines, but around Heavy D himself, the rumors, the pressure, and the quiet collapse. While lawyers battled in courtrooms and headlines painted him as the outlaw king of pollution, Heavy D Sparks was fighting a second, quieter war, this one inside his own life. Throughout 2018, 2019, and especially after the lawsuit ruling in 2020, fans began noticing something different about him. In YouTube videos and Instagram posts, he looked thinner, more tired, and far less energetic than the hyperactive showman viewers were used to. Comments started piling up beneath every post. Is Heavy D sick? Why does he look so run down? Is something wrong? Heavy D never confirmed a diagnosis, but the rumors persisted. And the truth, though never spoken directly, was simple. Years of non-stop filming, building, traveling, managing businesses, and navigating legal warfare had drained him physically and mentally. At the same time, the emotional toll was mounting. Every move he made, every build, every interview, every statement was now scrutinized. Diesel fans argued endlessly online. Some insisted the lawsuit was political. Others said the Diesel brothers deserved the punishment. Every post he made triggered a new wave of arguments he couldn't escape. Even his most innocent content, photos with his wife Ashley or moments with his children, drew criticism or speculation. Fame had given him visibility, but it had stolen his privacy. Financial pressure was another shadow creeping over him. Nobody knew the real number he paid in legal fees, but it was substantial. Court filings showed hundreds of thousands in fines. Legal teams weren't cheap, and the constant need to pivot business operations, moving away from high-profit but high-risk modifications, forced him to rebuild his income streams from the ground up. Diesel sellers had once thrived on extreme builds. Now many of those builds were impossible. At the same time, the television series that had made him a household name began to fade. The pandemic disrupted filming in 2020. New episodes became irregular. By 2022, only 8 fresh episodes had aired, and after that, everything slowed to a crawl. Fans wondered if the show was canceled. Discovery never gave a clear answer. In 2023, Heavy D and Diesel. Dave quietly revealed that they had ended it, not the network. They wanted freedom, they said. Freedom from schedules, executives, and rules. But for Heavy D, it was more than that. The show had become a symbol of the old version of himself. The version the lawsuit, the pressure, and the rumors had already crushed. And yet, even as the show faded, something else was happening behind the scenes, something nobody expected. Heavy D wasn't giving up. He was preparing for a transformation so radical that even his closest fans didn't see it coming. The electric gamble. that shocked his own fans. Just when people thought Heavy D Sparks might disappear from the spotlight entirely, he made the most unexpected move of his career. In early 2024, news broke that stunned both fans and critics. Heavy D had purchased the intellectual property rights to the Nikola Badger, one of the most spectacular failures in the history of electric vehicles. The Badger, once hyped as a futuristic electric pickup, had imploded in scandal after Nikola's founder was charged with fraud, investors fled, and the project collapsed before a single production unit was delivered. In the automotive world, the Badger had become a punchline, but Heavy D didn't see a joke. He saw a second chance. To the shock of everyone, he announced the launch of Ember Motors, a new company dedicated to resurrecting the Badger into a fully functional, rugged, off-road electric machine. For a man who had built his entire identity on diesel horsepower, turbochargers, and rolling coal, this pivot felt like betrayal to many of his longtime supporters. Social media exploded. Some fans applauded him for embracing the future. Others accused him of abandoning the very culture that made him famous. For a moment, the diesel community felt divided, almost fractured. Inside the chaos, Heavy D stayed determined. But those who looked closely could see the truth. He wasn't switching to electric because he suddenly loved EVs. He was running from the shadow the lawsuit had cast over his career. Diesel had become dangerous territory, too watched, too regulated, too risky. Reinventing himself in the clean energy space wasn't just business, it was survival. It was a way to build something new that couldn't be weaponized against him. Still, the burden of the decision weighed heavily. Ember Motors required huge investments, countless hours of development, and pressure unlike anything he faced before. Building a car company from scratch wasn't like building custom trucks. It was a battlefield of supply chains, engineering standards, compliance, and brutal competition. Heavy D poured his money into it, his time into it, and what was left of his public reputation into it. Yet behind his confident tone and announcements, there was a quiet exhaustion in his eyes, a fatigue that hinted at how much he was really risking. And as he was investing everything into this new dream, he did something even more shocking. Something that made fans realize he was going through a transformation far deeper than business. The day he sold everything. In mid-2024, when fans were still debating his electric pivot, Heavy D Sparks appeared on YouTube with a video titled simply, "We're Selling Everything." At first, viewers thought it was a joke, another over-the-top stunt to promote Ember Motors or a new series. But within seconds of the video starting, it was clear that something was different. Heavy D wasn't smiling. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't even excited. His tone was calm, too calm. And for longtime fans, that was the first sign that this wasn't a stunt. This was real. He walked through the legendary diesel seller's compound, pointing to each truck, each project, each machine, and attaching a price tag to all of it. The Brodozer, the Mega Ram Runner, lifted semis, shop tools, fabrication equipment, spare parts collected over a decade, the very heart of the empire he built. All of it had to go. Fans flooded the comments in disbelief. Some begged him not to do it. Others feared he was going bankrupt. A few asked whether the lawsuit had drained all his finances. But Heavy D didn't explain much. He kept repeating one line: "It's time for a major life change." To outsiders, it looked like a liquidation sale driven by desperation. But the reality was far more personal. Heavy D had spent more than 10 years building an identity based on machines, noise, chaos, and pushing everything to the limit. Those trucks weren't assets. They were pieces of his old life, the version of himself that had been crushed under federal pressure, non-stop filming schedules, and the weight of trying to live up to a TV persona that no longer fit the man he was becoming. Selling everything wasn't a financial collapse. It was a symbolic shedding of his past. And the toll was visible. In the yard sale videos, Heavy D looked focused but drained, like a man trying to find solid ground after years of running full throttle. This wasn't the unstoppable showman from 2016. This was someone who had finally hit a wall and realized he needed to start over before he crashed completely. But after the trucks were gone, the shop was empty, and the noise faded, fans noticed something else happening. Something subtle but unmistakable. Heavy D was no longer chasing louder builds or bigger stunts. His social media changed almost overnight. The content was quieter, more reflective. He talked about faith, mindset, family, and breathing room. It was the first time people sensed what the rumors had been pointing to all along. Heavy D Sparks wasn't abandoning his empire out of weakness. He was rebuilding himself from the ground up. The truth. He finally admits at 40. After the yard sale, after Ember Motors, after the trucks were gone and the cameras stopped rolling, Heavy D Sparks did something he hadn't done in years. He slowed down. For the first time since his 20s, he wasn't juggling a TV schedule, a federal lawsuit, multiple businesses, and a non-stop barrage of public attention. His content became quieter, almost introspective. Fans began to see him talk openly about faith, discipline, mental clarity, and the weight of burnout. And slowly the truth began to surface, one that had been hiding beneath the engines and the bravado for a long time. At 40 years old, Heavy D finally acknowledged that the rumors weren't just rumors. Yes, the lawsuit changed him. Yes, the endless pressure broke pieces of him he once believed were unbreakable. Yes, the version of himself fans knew from Diesel Brothers was gone. But it wasn't illness, financial ruin, or a secret scandal that pushed him to transform. It was exhaustion, real, bone-deep exhaustion from living at full throttle for more than a decade. He admitted quietly that he had been chasing bigger, louder, and faster for so long that he didn't realize how completely it was consuming him. The adrenaline, the fame, the deadlines, the expectations, it had all become a cage disguised as success. He explained that the lawsuit didn't just cost him money, it cost him joy. The U.S. against the world mentality that once fueled him eventually suffocated him. It made every project feel like a fight, every build like a risk, every public appearance like a performance he had to survive instead of enjoy. And when fans noticed him looking thinner, more distant, more tired, he admitted they weren't imagining it. The toll was real. Selling everything wasn't a collapse. It was a reset. Pivoting to electric wasn't betrayal. It was reinvention. Ending the TV show wasn't defeat. It was reclaiming control over his own life. Heavy D Sparks rebuilt an entire life after losing almost everything except his determination. His story isn't just about trucks, fame, or lawsuits. It's about knowing when to stop running and start healing. Do you think Heavy D made the right choice by walking away from the world that made him famous? Tell me your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this.